Hey, I'm Anthony Romano, and this video is going to tell you why 4-hour eating windows are better than OMAD. So OMAD is 1 meal a day, and both 4-hour eating windows and OMAD generally have people fasting for about 20 hours a day. Now, I recently came across the term 2MAD, 3MAD. These are just other terms people are using to refer to the amounts of meals they're having per day, yet still fasting. And these things are ultimately far better than OMAD because of digestive purposes I'll explain in this video. And ultimately, this is something I just realized has been a term, even though I've been doing it for a long time. I just referred to it differently because it's ultimately another form of fasting. That's what all these things are. They're different variations of intermittent fasting. So I'm going to explain to you the benefits of why you should do 2MAD or 3MAD, but in the same eating window as OMAD. Okay, and before we get into this video, like it and subscribe. Okay, that's going to make YouTube show my content to more people. And also stay tuned for the Keto Manifesto and Keto Shred program. Okay, so I've made videos in the past on OMAD and the ways to perfect it, but ultimately I always recommend and practice myself eating the same fasting window, yet more meals within the actual eating period. So there are a lot of digestive reasons with this, but I'm going to start off by explaining protein. So if we know there's one macro you need to get in that meal, it's protein, right? You need your protein to be adequate, even if you aren't having the stomach capacity to handle the rest of your carbs or fats, or both. Because the carbs or fats are your body's energy, and your body can basically tap into its own if it needs to make up the rest, especially if you're keto adapted. Now when we're getting to protein, okay, we know you need to eat your protein. So if your total requirement is not there, that's a problem, right? Easy fix, eat enough protein. But here's the problem when it comes to OMAD. When you're having a large amount of protein and carb mixed in the same meal, you're going to have a conflicting stomach environment. So you're going to have protein digesting in acidity and carbs digesting in alkalinity. So when you combine large amounts of them, an entire day's worth of calories in them, you are going to basically cause conflicting gut environment and not properly digest the foods that you're eating within that period. So granted, if you are only doing one meal, this is a problem. If you space it out, you can have your carbs and proteins with different digestive pHs involved at each of those meals. As a side note, something I explained deeper in the OMAD videos on this is that, the energy source that's most conducive to getting your protein in is fats, because they do digest better. They're not going to have that conflicting gut environment. That's also why a lot of fats naturally come packed with proteins, okay? Like fish, steak. There's a whole chicken in nature. There's not just chicken breast, okay? Eggs. All these foods naturally come packaged with fat. All the major protein sources you think of come packaged with fat and protein. They digest well together. And you also need the energy from the fat to provide your liver with enough fuel to actually metabolize the protein into amino acids. Otherwise, you're just going to be causing a little bit too much inflammation if you do that too often. Now, besides the fact that you should be consuming a digestive enzyme, if you are having an OMAD or 2MAD or 3MAD, practice in place. Here's the main reason why 4-hour eating windows is a better way to look at it. Okay? Because again, we know OMAD has some inherent boundaries, okay? There's the digestive capabilities. You probably are going to cause conflicting gut environments. Something's going to cause bloating or gas because something's just fermenting in your stomach if it doesn't get digested properly. Basically, it just rots in your stomach and creates short-chain fatty acids and causes gas. But regardless of if you want to do, a keto OMAD or a non-keto OMAD, the thing you have to know is that both scenarios are going to be improved by spacing out the meals a bit. Primarily because of the digestion. It's not because your body's going to turn all the protein if you eat in one sitting into sugar. That's not going to happen. But the thing is, you do need to have these foods digest in an environment that's conducive to them. So when you space things out, and as soon as your 4-hour eating window starts, you have one meal, and then you have another one later, you're now going to have better digestion of those foods. Other tips you could throw into this. You can get some apple cider vinegar before the first protein meal, for example, and consume that. Watch my video on how to consume it properly and not destroy your teeth. And basically, what you're going to do is you're going to add a little bit more acidity to your stomach, especially because a lot of people have low stomach acidity, especially if you're low in iron, especially if you have a very carb-intensive diet, like super carb-intensive diet. Your chances are you're going to be low in stomach acidity. So that's a great tip for the start, and then follow up with a digestive enzyme. Now, the best way to follow up with that would be to have your other meal and space those things out. So granted, this could be 3 meals within 4 hours. It can be within 3 hours. But the point is you don't want to be slamming things at one time, or at least if you are, make it keto food. If you're doing OMAD, it basically should only be keto. There's really no way to have, maximize the benefits if you're doing OMAD without keto in place. You can't just slam a bunch of carbs and protein. Okay? Now, granted, you can have a bit of carb, if you're doing OMAD, especially because if you're fat adapted, so you've done keto before recently, then you're going to get enhanced absorption of, the carbs and the fat and the protein. Mainly because when you're not eating carbs on a regular basis, your body has a higher emphasis to use them properly. So unless you're eating fructose or sugar that goes to your liver, you're not really going to get much fat storage unless you spill over your quantitative total for the day. Hopefully that makes sense. Maybe listen to that part over again if it was a little bit confusing. So, as far as 2MAD and 3MAD go, the 4-hour eating window is the only way you should look at it. Think of it as fasting every single day, and if you want to eat one meal, okay? Granted, try to keep it more ketogenic, more fat and protein only if you're doing it that way. If you're doing 2MAD or 3MAD, you definitely have more flexibility to do this, but for myself, somebody who does ketogenic dieting 90% of the time, I will have, keto meals on those OMADs, and maybe I'll have a second one in a 2MAD sort of thing within that same eating window. So overall, those are the tips. Use a digestive enzyme. Get some apple cider vinegar in there beforehand, especially with your protein meals and also with your carb meals, because they're going to enhance the absorption of glucose properly due to the acetic acid in the apple cider vinegar. Again, watch the apple cider vinegar video. Just type in ACV Romano and you'll find it. And yeah, essentially those are the tips. 2MAD, 3MAD, those are better, but just look at it as fasting, okay? Wake up every day with the intention to fast if you're going to fast. And then from there, don't worry about slamming everything in one meal. Have your first meal when you're done eating and you feel full, stop, and then have another meal, okay? And also have a digestive enzyme during your biggest meals, because if you're throwing in a lot of food, your stomach's not going to have the capabilities to break those things down, especially if they're conflicting macronutrients. That's it for this video. Like it, subscribe, be amped for the Keto Manifesto, and be amped for the Keto Shred program. That's all I have to say for this one. Leave me some comments down below, and I'll do my best to get back to you. Thanks.